Yeah, thanks. And that was a pretty handy segue, actually, because you might ask, what is Mayur Resources doing at a New World Metals Conference? And as the introduction said, with some slight variations, you might say, basically you won't produce any New World metals without lime. It's as simple as that. So for what a commodity that over historically has probably been regarded as a bit boring, it is a key enabling reagent in the production and the processing and the winning of any of our metals, whether it's rare earths, uranium, copper, gold, nickel. Lime sits in the processing circuit of every one of those metals. But the other thing about lime, before I get into the detail, which I think most people don't understand, is the diversity of uses. And from an investment perspective, which I'm sure most of you are here for, is to look at your next investment opportunity, it presents as a commodity that's very resistant to cyclical change in the metalliferous sector because of its varied and wide uses in other areas. So it's not just used for minerals processing. It's used in water treatment, sewage treatment, in agriculture, for treating acidification of waterways, for taking sulphur out of smokestacks, for creating lightweight bricks, for building a railway line or a road through terrible low CBR soils. You can add lime to those clays, and you get a 4 times multiple in your CBR. So if you've got a 4 CBR material, you add the lime, you can get it up to 16. So it's just got these incredible qualities that make it useful in so many different aspects of everything that we do in our lives, which I think makes it an incredibly not only useful, but from an investability perspective, a commodity that isn't going to suffer the vagaries of the ups and downs of the mineral sector. So let me get into the detail. Just go through the disclaimers. I think the first point of difference I'd like to say about our project and Mayur is, and I haven't sat through many of the presentations here today, but largely people here at this conference are explorers. We're well beyond that. So when you look at Mayur, you're looking at investing in a company that effectively there's no resource risk anymore. It's completely drilled out. We're shovel ready. There's no permitting risk. We've fully permitted, environment permit, 20-year ML. And not only that, we're actually on the ground constructing. And you can see this image here. This is just the construction of our pioneering wharf at the end of last year. And what that means is with that wharf, we can actually even start getting into cash flow by selling aggregates. So the other thing I probably didn't mention, which is another use of lime, is you can sell it and compete with traditional quarry aggregates. You can make a 60 CBR material out of our limestone every day of the week. So that's a nice early opportunity for cash flow for our business. The economics of the project are fantastic, and you can see the site there. Those hills and grassed hills in the background of that image there. That's the lime. It's about 100 metres out of the ground. The resource is extraordinary. It's huge. And I think the other great advantage that we've got over other lime producers in the region or our competitors, which no one can take away from us, so it's a genuine structural advantage, is the fact that the resource, the processing facility, which is sitting on that flat area in front of those hills, and the port are all within 2 kilometres of each other. So your land-based logistics are almost nothing. If you compare that to producers out of Malaysia, Thailand, which is where a lot of our competition would come from, some of them are trucking raw material for 100, 150 kilometres, barging it down a river for a couple of 100 kilometres, and then getting it onto the ship. We've got none of that. The other great advantage is our markets. We're very nicely positioned in PNG, which means that we can service the Australian market, East Coast, Northern Australian market, mineral sector. We can service the nickel sector in New Caledonia and Indonesia. So we're very, very well positioned geographically to service the fastest growing markets. project is on a mining lease that was granted back in about 2020. As I said, 382 million tonnes of JORC. The deposits are sort of two different areas, a very high-grade area which we're focusing on the lime, and then a lower-grade area which we're potentially looking at a stage 2 project, which is our cement project in PNG, which would be a 1.7 million tonne a year clinker and cement manufacturing process. They go hand in hand. In fact, your material balance when you build an integrated cement and lime plant is perfect, because typically when you make lime, you screen it at a bottom size of around about 30 to 40 millimetres. We'll be screening it at slightly smaller than that because of the modifications to our kiln, which means that undersized material doesn't need to go to a lower value product like aggregates, can be fed straight into the clinker kiln. So ultimately, the full phase development with the 2 phases would be the lime and the clinker operating together as a synergistic, fully integrated facility. Just quickly on the register, market cap 120 odd million, based on most recent prices, 411 million shares on issue. We've seen some terrific share growth in the last 6 months, and I think that's the market starting to realise, look, there's no resource risk anymore. There's no permitting risk. There's minimal construction risk. We've been on the ground. We're building. We've got the landowners and all our stakeholders on side, and we're now at that point where really the only risk that sits there in front of us today is probably, if you consider it a risk, is something going wrong with the construction. But unlike a complex rare earth hydrometallurgical plant or something like this, building lime kilns is simple. It's easy. We've got all the EPC prices in, so I think the risk around construction is actually extremely low. Look, the other thing, board and management, myself, we're heavily invested in this company. We own 25% of the register, so we're very heavily invested in this company. And, I think we've got a very talented and capable board with Richard Pegham as our chairman, formerly from Macquarie, Paul Mulder, our, tirelessly working and extremely talented MD, Chris Endermer, a very experienced board member, and Mushi Wera, who's also on the board of Santos as our PNG National on the board. As I touched on before, and I'm watching this clock dial down pretty quickly, so I'll flick through some of these slides quickly. First point that you need to take away, this is, if you use BHP and Rio speak, this is a long life, low cost, multi-generational resource. It's going to be producing lime for 100 years. It's going to be at the lowest quartile cost curve. These are the type of assets the majors look for in a copper mine or a coal mine or an iron ore mine, except this is lime. So long life, expandable, low cost. Lime, as I touched on in my introduction, it would be very difficult for me in the time allotted here to sort of take you through all the uses of lime, but it truly is an extraordinary commodity. And as I said earlier, water treatment, chemicals and manufacturing, glass, agriculture, construction, decarbonisation. The formation of lime actually is part of the decarbonisation cycle. All the battery minerals, I know we've just noticed lithium here, but basically all of them. If you take nickel, you need, at the production from our 2 kilns, in its entirety would be used up by 120,000 tonne HPAL plant in Indonesia. So nickel is a huge, the nickel processing industry, particularly HPAL. Rare earths, huge. Lynas uses 70,000 tonnes of lime a year. The project which name escapes me at the moment, in New South Wales, they'll be looking for about 120,000 tonnes of lime a year. Copper, likewise. Nickel, uranium, all of them require lime in the processing circuit, and that's what, as I said earlier, makes it such an extraordinary mineral. And from an investability perspective, where you might be concerned with the cyclical nature, because of the varied uses, the lime industry doesn't suffer from that. In fact, what you will often see is when you've got the downturn in the mineral sector, you've got the construction side picking up, which evens out any downturn in demand. Look, this is a Wood Mackenzie produced chart. Now, I'll put a note here that Wood Mackenzie have only done a lime demand study here based on the demand that comes from the metals industry, which is the industry that they typically do research on. So what you see in this chart here does not include any of the demand that might be going to water processing, might be going into the construction industry, might be going into the sugarcane industry, might be going into lightweight bricks. None of that's shown here. This is purely derived demand from the expansion and growth or expected growth of the New World metals industries, if you want to call it that. Just moving on to the sort of specifics of the project. This is a high-level schematic, so I'll just flick through that. But we are under construction. That's the Pioneering Wharf under construction at the back end of last year. Pretty much finished. We're now moving into the stage 2 of the wharf, which is double-sided barge loading before we extend out to stage 3, which will take us to being able to load Panamaxes. On this point, I should note that this will be a privately owned wharf by the company. It's 100% owned, privately owned by the company. Another massive, massive advantage that we've got over our competitors. You know, owning your own strategic seaborne wharf assets is gold. It really is gold. And I think anyone that's owned their own assets, port assets in Australia, have demonstrated that. We're in a position now with the Pioneering Wharf completed to actually start getting into production. You know, we're dealing with opportunities to supply aggregates, seaborne aggregates into the PNG market right now. We've got some live proposals out there now, and we're ready. We can load barges tomorrow. We've actually already had 3 barges on that wharf. So that's the early cash flow opportunity that further de-risks the ongoing development of the project. Site layout, you can see in the background, not that clearly here, the limestone hills. You've got space for 4 lime kilns in this image here. We're starting off with 2. We'd look to expand to 4, but our 10-year plan is to take us to 8. We think the market can easily take that much additional lime. But as you can see, otherwise it's a very compact plant layout. We'll also have a hydration plant. Normally when you make quicklime, you know, there's some customers that like to take hydrated lime, which is effectively quicklime with water added in a controlled manner. It's a little bit safer to handle. And then all the normal things that you might see in a manufacturing plant, bagging plants, warehouses, etc. And then it's either trucked out to the local market or shipped out to the seaborne market. This is a close-up of the lime kilns. These are Merz kilns. Merz are probably the number 1 engineering firm in terms of globally out of Germany. They will be manufactured in China, but they are basically a Merz kiln and Merz branded. And you know, there's been literally thousands of these built in the last 15, 20 years in China. The interesting thing and why lime is actually quite attractive to us is also because in Australia or in our region, there's been probably 30 years worth of almost no investment. So it's created a huge market opportunity for us because there's just been no investment in lime in Australia for that long. And there's really only a couple of players. Boral have got a small plant and Adelaide Brighton would be the biggest player. So that's really opened the door for us. Yeah, as I mentioned before, supply chain, this is our own private wharf. You can see the schematic of the stage 2 and the stage 3. We will be able to load handy maxes, so vessels up to about 11.5 metres, which puts us into a situation where we can actually ship very, very competitively to our markets. Yeah, just quickly on the shipping routes, obviously PNG is a huge lime market, particularly with the gold and copper industry and Ramu nickel. We'd be looking to supply directly into Prony, which currently gets its lime from the Philippines, then the East Coast, Northern Australia, and ultimately the West Coast. The other point I haven't mentioned is the special economic zone. So the whole area is on a special economic zone, so no very low taxation rates. And I'm getting the evil eye. Just quickly, some photos. Everyone likes images. That's some photos of the site area and some more there. Thank you.